Hello and welcome back to the Eastwick Conference's film breakdown series, where last night we got treated to a duel between top 10 overall pick centers in the 2024 NBA draft. Say that 10 times fast. Alex Sarr of the Washington Wizards versus Donovan Clingan of the Portland Trailblazers, who I did a breakdown on earlier this season. If you're curious, aeastwick.substack.com. Quick plug. The Wizards came out on top. This was a messy game for both teams, but Alex Sarr, for his part, put up 29 points on 11 of 29 shooting to go with 12 rebounds, 6 on either end, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 6 blocks. And I want to use this game to talk about how he's grown as an offensive player, some of the things that he does quite well, how at 20 years old he's already one of the most impressive defensive bigs in the league, and how this matchup in particular exposed some limitations for his game right now at 20 years old that hopefully as he grows into his body, enters his prime, as the Wizards hopefully get better, he can really stand to gain from improving. I want to start with this play where Chris Middleton catches the ball, gets the Clingan help pulled over to him, and that lets Sarr cut down the middle and finish a wild dunk over Clingan, which is a matchup we'll be seeing quite a bit of in this video. But I want to use that as an opportunity to talk about Sarr's rim finishing this year. If you look at the numbers, he's shooting 71% at the basket this season. That is quite a good number for a center, and it's considerably better than what it was last year, right around 63%. But what's even more apparent is how much more often he's getting to the basket. A total of 41% of his shots have come at the rim this season, which even though for a center is not that good, is way better than it was a year ago when only 28% of his shots came at the rim. So he basically went from being allergic to getting to the basket as a center to really showing meaningful improvements. Some other explanation for why that number at the rim is quite low is because he takes 35% of his shots in the short mid-range. He's shooting 40% when he gets there. Both of those are increases from last year. He shot 32% on 29% of his shots, so he is getting to the basket more often. We see that push shot over 2 right there. Here, he has this little hook shot. We're going to see that quite a bit. I don't know if that counts as a shot at the rim because it was in the restricted area, but the point stands. He was also quite active on the offensive glass. I said he had 6 rebounds. We're going to see 3 of them there. That hook shot once again to finish over the long arms of Donovan Clingan. Here he gets a dunk capitalizing on Clingan wanting to help at the rim. And then on this one, runs the pick and roll. Clingan once again showing over there. And that's a little push shot floater, another short mid-range shot that you can see to help fight a drop contest. He gets the offensive rebound that time. Here, empty corner. He has a lot of space to go into. Clingan has to try to help and recover, and the shot is up over the contest before he gets there. So we've seen a bunch of little crafty things. He has that push shot, he has that hook, and he has a little floater, all designed if he can't get all the way to the rim, which we're going to talk about why he can't get all the way to the basket in a little bit. He has options and he has the ability to get to a number of different shots and be viable either in the dunker spot or in the pick and roll. And then here, this is one that I really like, taking Clingan one-on-one, and he doesn't have the physical advantage. We're going to talk about that, but he gets right to a post fade and he actually gets the end one there. So there is some real craft and skill that we see out of Sarr in these little short mid-range pockets. But the other part of his game that I think is really important to talk about, especially in the context of this matchup, is his three-point shooting. So last year, he took 5 threes per game. He only shot 30%. This year, he's shooting 34% on just under 3 per game. So the threes have gone down in exchange for shots at the rim, which is quite good. But we're seeing that the three-pointer is still a part of his arsenal. In this game, he took 9 of them, and he made 3, and it's really easy to see why his volume was so high, because Donovan Clingan, in all of these clips you're going to see, is just going to be in a drop, waiting to contest as many shots as he can at the basket. That is his priority. And so Sarr just needs to set the screen, pop out there, and he had a lot of open pick and pop threes in that situation. If you have that versatility to your game, I think that that's a really important piece to becoming a multifaceted center in the league. It creates a lot of different lineup constructions you can play with you on the floor, or your team can play with you on the floor, and it just lets you do a lot more things as an offensive player. And then I just wanted to end with this crazy one. You see he gets bodied by his teammate on the screen, catches the chaos ball, and he shoots that turnaround jumper, and he cashes it. That's just a crazy shot. Now I want to talk about Sarr's defense, where I said he had 6 blocks in this game. He's averaging 2.2 on the season right now, which, because Victor Wembanyama doesn't qualify yet because of games played, he is currently the league leader. And what really shows up for me with his shot blocking is his best defensive skill and one of the rarest for bigs around the league, and that is his mobility, which when you combine with his wingspan and his height, make him really, really dangerous. So in situations like this where the ball handler in the pick and roll gets by the first level of defense, he can stay right with the ball handler. This time gets beat on the backdoor cut, but he's right there and able to erase shots, really just be a rover. But this one is the most impressive to me and the most emblematic of his mobility as a screen defender at the big position. So here you see Deni Avdija coming off the screen, and Sarr is fully committed over. He has flipped his hips, facing the ball, totally committed because his defender is fighting behind the play. You need to stay in front of the ball. Sarr is there. He's being a deterrent. What that means for just about every other big man in the league, not every, but almost every other big man, is this pocket pass gets opened up and Klingon has a free reign to the basket. He either gets a dunk, a layup, or this guy, who in this case is Trey Johnson, a much smaller player, has to come over and rotate. That's a very bad place for your defense to be. Instead, Sarr flips his hips immediately, gets right back there, and doesn't just contest the shot, but he blocks it. That is what happens when you combine mobility with a 7'1" guy with a huge wingspan. You get a really, really rare defensive talent around the basket. What that mobility also lets him do, though, is be one of the better switch defenders at the big position in the NBA. This time, he's matched up against Deni Avdija, one of the most relentless drivers in the league, matches him step for step, and he's able to get the block. Klingon gets the offensive rebound because there's no other bigs to box him out. But this time, Drew Holiday, this is a point guard, matches him every single step of the way. No good shot, forces him to take the pump fake, and then swats the real attempt anyway. I want to close this out with a stat that really, in my opinion, exemplifies just how good of a rim protector this guy is already, and it's really wild. So if you look at the NBA's tracking data, Sarr is defending 10 shots per game within 6 feet of the basket. That leads the entire NBA. So just remember, he is contesting more shots within 6 feet than anybody else in the league. Opponents on those shots are shooting 9.5% worse than they would otherwise. Of the top 30 players in shots within 6 feet defended in the league, that is 7th overall. The only players with a higher difference between expected and actual shooting are Chet Holmgren, Rudy Gobert, Ivica Zubac, Evan Mobley, Nick Claxton, and Luke Cornett. That is 4 all-defense guys. Nick Claxton's been in that conversation a couple times in his career, and Luke Cornett, a backup center who is quite effective around the rim, another 7-footer. So Sarr, at 20 years old, is already in rarefied air as a rim protector, and the fact that he has the mobility to unlock a lot of different things you can do with him and use him as a true centerpiece with his ability to prevent shots at the rim in a lot of different ways, that is incredibly encouraging to me. But I said I was going to talk about some areas of improvement for Sarr, and here we are. And really what all of these are going to come down to is the fact that this guy is really skinny and he doesn't have a lot of functional strength yet. And when he's matched up against a guy like Donovan Klingon, another elite rim protector, but a guy who is humongous. Look at his shoulders. This guy is a massive mountain of a man. When you're matched up against a guy like that, of which there are several in the NBA, you're going to have problems when you are banging with those guys down low. So on the offensive end, it really manifests itself in a lot of ways. This one, to start the game, he doesn't even try to initiate contact there. I think that that's just frankly unacceptable. And fortunately, Sarr did start to really push the bill a little bit more throughout the game. But even when he did, on a lot of these plays, you'll see he tries to put a shoulder in, tries to get that bump, but it doesn't move Sarr at all. And so he ends up settling for these tough, contested shots further away from the basket than other players maybe could. See here, he tries to get to the basket, but he just gets completely walled off. Klingon just needs to put his chest out, and the advantage is dead if there ever was one in the first place. There again, settling for a little bit of a fader away from the basket, shying away from that contact. And then here he finally does try to put a shoulder in and get all the way to the rim, and he gets stuffed. So on the offensive end, I do think that that is part of why why Klingon gave Sarr issues and why Sarr only takes around 40% of his shots at the basket. It's because when he's matched up against players like this, at least partially, it stops him from getting all the way there and from really utilizing and maximizing his potential that his wingspan really would lead you to believe that he has as a potential lob threat, as a guy that can finish shots at a high clip over contests. He needs to build up that strength to become a more efficient offensive player. Where that strength also really shows up is as a rebounder. He had 12 rebounds in this game, but he's only averaging around 7.5 on the season. When you look at the numbers, he's really not that good of a rebounder in terms of percentages. And again, when he's matched up against a much bigger, stronger, more physical opponent, it's very clear to see why. In this game, Donovan Klingon had 20 rebounds, and 13 of them came on the offensive end. Situations like this, you can see he just gets overpowered. There's a strength differential there. The box out doesn't matter. But on the rest of these plays, what I want you to notice is where Klingon's body is. Right here, his teammate gets the shot up. There's no world in which Sarr should be behind Klingon here. It should be the other way around. But Sarr has no chance to grab this rebound because he just can't break the wall that is Donovan Klingon's torso. Klingon just grabs that, and he's able to keep the possession alive for his team. On the rest of these plays, though, I want you to notice Sarr initially is in pretty good space, but because he's keen on potentially rotating over to contest a shot at the basket, and B, he doesn't have a body on Klingon, and C, even if he did, it doesn't matter. Watch what Klingon does. He just gets right around him, and all of a sudden, by the time the shot is up, Klingon is as close to the rim as Sarr, with the ability to just throw an elbow out and push him out of position and grab the rebound. But I do also want to note, Klingon was credited for an offensive rebound on this play, even though Denny Avdia got fouled right here. The play was dead. They should not be calling that, but he got one of his 13 offensive rebounds off of that. That's just my little aside. That is bogus. But my point stands. Watch what Klingon does. Sarr's there to contest. Klingon just needs to move 3 feet, and he's right there for the rebound. Sarr is not able to box out. He's not a great box out guy, and because he's so keen on potentially stopping a shot at the basket, it is just a free rein for these more physical centers to get wherever they want under the basket. It doesn't matter how good you are at contesting shots at the rim if you're not ending the possession once you force the miss. And that's something that Klingon made him pay for all night. Here, see, look, Sarr started the possession. Pretty good position. But Klingon is just towing this baseline just enough to where he needs to take one step, put an elbow in, and now Sarr is out of the picture. Sarr is the one getting boxed out, not Klingon, and Klingon is able to put that ball back up. Klingon's rim finishing is another story. This was an ugly game from both centers in terms of efficiency, but the point stands. So Alex Sarr really does have a lot of potential, in my opinion, as a versatile big man on both ends of the floor. If he is going to turn into something more than just a all-defense candidate and something maybe an all-star or beyond, this is the lowest hanging fruit. He's only 20 years old. He's going to get stronger. His body is going to fill out over the next few years. I'm very curious to see what it looks like when he's 26 years old because, in my opinion, that's really going to be the swing skill for him. Obviously, improving the touch in that short mid-range, those hooks, those floaters, the three-point efficiency, all of that really matters, but filling out that frame to become a more forceful offensive player, as well as rounding out his archetype as a rim protector, mobile big man, and ender of possessions, being a presence on that defensive glass, I think that that is what vaults him from potential fringe all-defense to all-star or beyond. This Wizards team doesn't have one of those solid, bona fide guys quite yet, even though they're a few years into that rebuild. We'll see who they get in the draft this year, but unless they get one of those guys, it's pretty easy for me to see why basically the consensus at this point is Sarr is the crown jewel of this Wizards rebuild. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this, and more than anything, I hope that you have a great day.